My family ghosted me for Thanksgiving. Not a single text, not one phone call, not even a passive-aggressive Facebook post asking where I was. Just silence. Like I had never existed at all. Like 28 years of shared holidays inside. Jokes and family traditions meant absolutely nothing. You know that feeling when your phone stays eerily quiet on a day when it should be buzzing with love? When you keep checking it, thinking maybe you missed something, but there's nothing there except your own reflection staring back at you from a black screen? If this story hits you in the gut like it's hitting me right now, please hit that like button and subscribe, because I need you to stay with me through this. Drop a comment and let me know if you've ever felt completely abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. Because what happened next? Well, it changed everything. Let me take you back to 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. I was sitting in my tiny studio apartment, the one with the leaky faucet and the neighbor who practices violin at 2 a.m., scrolling through my sister Monica's Instagram stories. There she was, posting aesthetic photos of pumpkins and fall leaves, with captions like, "Can't wait for our cozy family Thanksgiving, our family Thanksgiving." The words hit me like a slap. I hadn't heard a single word about Thanksgiving plans. I immediately called Mom. The phone rang 4 times before she picked up, and I could hear the hesitation in her voice, even in that simple, "Hello?" "Hey, Mom, it's me. I was just wondering about Thanksgiving plans this year. Should I bring my famous sweet potato casserole again?" There was a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause that made my stomach drop. "Oh, Amber. Honey, we figured you'd probably want to do your own thing this year. You know, with everything that's been going on." Everything that's been going on. Code for my recent divorce from Jake, the man my family had loved more than they ever loved me. The man who still got invited to family barbecues while I got awkward silences and change of subject moments. "What do you mean, my own thing?" "Mom, it's Thanksgiving. It's our tradition." Another pause. I could hear my dad's voice in the background, muffled but urgent. Mom covered the phone, but I caught fragments. "Told you this would be awkward. She'll understand." "Mom? Are you there?" "Yes, sweetie, I'm here." "Listen, maybe we can do something the weekend after? Just us girls?" Just us girls. Like I was some obligation to be dealt with separately, away from the real family gathering. Away from Jake, who would undoubtedly be there with his new girlfriend. Sarah, the woman he'd been just friends with during the last year of our marriage. I hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every family gathering from the past year, looking for clues I'd missed. The way conversations stopped when I entered a room. How my cousin Emma had avoided eye contact during my birthday dinner. The group chat that had mysteriously gone quiet whenever I posted in it. They'd been planning this, planning to exclude me, planning to have their perfect Thanksgiving without the broken, divorced daughter who reminded them of uncomfortable truths. The next morning, I called my sister, Monica, directly. "Mon, what's going on with Thanksgiving?" Mom was being really weird when I asked about it. Monica sighed, and I could practically see her running her hand through her hair the way she always did when she was about to say something she didn't. "Wanna say?" "Look, Amber, this is really hard for everyone. Jake's he's been part of the family for 8 years. And Sarah, she's really sweet. Mom thinks it would just be too awkward having both of you there." "Both of us? Monica, I'm your sister. I'm blood family. He's my ex-husband who cheated on me." It's more complicated than that, and you know it. No, I didn't know it. What I knew was that my husband of 5 years had been emotionally cheating with his coworker for months before I found out. What I knew was that I'd tried to save our marriage while he'd already moved on. What I knew was that I'd shown up to family events alone for the past 6 months while he brought his new girlfriend, and somehow I was the problem. So I'm not invited. To my own family's Thanksgiving? Nobody said you weren't invited, Amber. We just thought, who's we, Monica? Who exactly is making these decisions about my life? She went quiet. Then, so softly I almost missed it. Everyone just wants things to be peaceful, peaceful. Without me, things would be peaceful. I hung up on her too. Over the next week, I watched from the sidelines as my family planned their perfect, amber-free Thanksgiving. Monica posted photos of herself and Mom shopping for decorations. My cousin, Emma, shared a story about helping Aunt Linda prep the guest room, the room that used to be mine whenever I visited. Even my youngest brother David, who I thought was on my side, posted a photo of himself and Dad setting up tables in the backyard. Not one of them reached out to me. I sat in my apartment for days, oscillating between rage and heartbreak. I drafted a dozen angry texts and deleted them all. I started to call Mom 3 different times and chickened out each time. I considered just showing up on Thanksgiving Day and forcing a confrontation, but the thought of seeing Jake and Sarah there, welcomed and comfortable while I was the unwanted intruder, made me physically sick. By the time Thanksgiving week arrived, I had made a decision that would change everything. If they didn't want me at their Thanksgiving, I'd make my own. Not some sad, lonely dinner for one situation. Something bigger, something better. Something that would show them exactly what they were missing. I started by reaching out to people I knew would be alone for the holidays. My coworker Jessica, whose family lived across the country. My neighbor Mrs. Patterson, whose children never visited. My friend Marcus, who'd been dreading his first Thanksgiving since his mother passed away. But I didn't stop there. I posted on social media, not my usual carefully curated posts, but something raw and honest. Anyone else feeling left? Out of family plans this year? Let's create our own chosen family Thanksgiving. My apartment's small, but my heart is big. Message me if you need somewhere to belong this Thursday. The responses started immediately. People I hadn't talked to in years, acquaintances from college. Even strangers who had seen the post shared by mutual friends. Each message was a story of exclusion, of families that couldn't accept their choices, of people who had nowhere else to go. By Tuesday, I had 23 people confirmed for my Orphans Thanksgiving, as we'd started calling it, my tiny studio. Apartment couldn't possibly hold everyone, so I called my building's landlord, Mr. Rodriguez. His wife had passed away the year before, and I knew he'd be spending the holiday alone. Mr. Rodriguez, I have a crazy favor to ask. Would you let me use the community room for Thanksgiving? I'll clean everything afterwards, and you're completely invited to join us. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Mija, that room hasn't been used. For something happy in a long time. Yes, absolutely yes. Wednesday night, I barely slept. Not from anxiety, but from excitement. Pure electric excitement like I hadn't felt in months. I was up until 3 a.m. cooking, decorating, and setting up the community room. Jessica came over at midnight with homemade rolls. Marcus arrived at 2 a.m. with his grandmother's famous stuffing recipe. Mrs. Patterson knocked on my door at dawn with 3 different pies. By Thursday morning, the community room had been transformed into something magical. Mismatched tables arranged in a big circle. Fairy lights strung across the windows. Handmade place cards for everyone. It looked nothing like my family's perfectly coordinated Thanksgiving setup, and it was absolutely perfect. At 2 p.m., people started arriving. Not just the people I'd invited, but friends of friends, plus ones who had heard about our celebration. The room filled with laughter, with stories, with the kind of genuine warmth I hadn't felt in years. And then, at 4 p.m., something happened that I never could have predicted. My phone started buzzing, not with messages from my family. They were still radio silent, but with notifications from social media. Jessica had been posting stories throughout the day, tagging me in photos of our celebration. Those posts were being shared, and shared again. And again, people were calling it inspiring, heartwarming, revolutionary. By 6 p.m., local news stations were calling me. By 8 p.m., my story was trending on 3 different platforms. By 10 p.m., I had interview requests from national morning shows. My die. Orphan's Thanksgiving had gone viral. But here's where the story gets really interesting. As I was reading through hundreds of comments from strangers telling me how brave I was, how my story had inspired them to create their own celebrations, my phone finally rang with a familiar number. Mom. I stared at her name on my screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button. Around me, my chosen family was still celebrating, still laughing, still filling the room with the kind of love I'd been desperately seeking from my biological family. The phone kept ringing, and that's when I realized that everything I thought I knew about family, about loyalty, about where I belonged, was about to be completely turned upside down, because what my mother was calling to tell me would reveal a secret that had been buried in my family for over a decade. A secret that would explain everything. Why they'd really excluded me, why Jake was so important to them, and why I'd never quite felt like I fit in. But that conversation, and the shocking truth it revealed, would have to wait. I answered the phone on the last ring. Amber? Mom's voice was shaky, uncertain. In the background, I could hear the familiar sounds of our family Thanksgiving. Uncle Bob's booming laugh, the clatter of dishes, children running around. The life I'd been excluded from. Hi, Mom. Honey, We saw the news. Channel 7 just ran a story about your Thanksgiving, and it's all over Facebook. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone. Now I was worth talking about. That's nice, I said, my voice flat. Around me, my chosen family was still celebrating. Marcus was teaching Mrs. Patterson how to play guitar. Jessica was showing a group of people photos from her travels, real connection, real joy. Amber, we need to talk. Can you come over? There's something we should have told you a long time ago. My blood went cold. What kind of something? Not over the phone, sweetie. Please, just come home. Home. The place that hadn't felt like home in months. The place where Jake was probably carving turkey right now while Sarah sat in what used to be my chair. Is he there? Is Jake there? Mom's pause told me everything. Yes, but... Then no. Whatever you need to tell me, you can say it now, or you can wait until your precious son-in-law goes home. Amber, please don't be like this. You know we love you. Do I? Because your actions say otherwise, Mom. You excluded me from Thanksgiving. You chose my ex-husband over your own daughter. So, forgive me if I don't feel particularly loved right now. I heard her take a shuddering breath. Then, so quietly I had, to strain to hear, we didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. No, honey, there isn't. Not when... She trailed off and I heard Dad's voice in the background again, more urgent this time. Not when what, Mom? What aren't you telling me? Another long pause. Then, Jake is David's father. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually staggered backward, bumping into the wall. What? Jake is David's biological father, Amber. Your little brother. He's Jake's son. The room started spinning. David. My baby brother, 15 years younger than me. Born when I was in 8th grade, when Mom had insisted it was a wonderful surprise. After so many years. David, who looked nothing like Dad or any of us, but who I'd never questioned because genetics are weird, right? David, who had Jake's eyes, Jake's smile, Jake's laugh. How is that possible? My voice came out as a whisper. It was before you and Jake got together, honey. Years before. I was going through a really difficult time with your father, and Jake he was there. He was young, barely 19, working at the hardware store. It was just one night, and I thought, I hoped it would never matter. One night. My mother had slept with my future husband when he was barely out of high school, and somehow I'd ended up married to my brother's father without knowing it. Does Jake know? He figured it out when David was about 10. The resemblance became impossible to ignore. He confronted me, and I begged him not to tell anyone. I was terrified it would destroy our family. Our family. The family that had just destroyed me. Does David know? No. And he can't ever know, Amber. It would devastate him. You know how much he worships Dad. Dad, who had raised another man's child for 13 years without knowing. Or did he know? What about Dad? Mom's silence. Stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Mom, your father found out last year, during your divorce proceedings. Jake was angry, said he was tired of pretending David wasn't his son. He threatened to tell David the truth unless we made sure he stayed part of the family. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Jake's sudden closeness with my parents during our separation. The way they'd defended him when I tried to explain about his emotional affair. Their insistence that I was being too harsh and should try to work things out. He'd been blackmailing them. So you chose him over me. We chose to protect David. Amber, if this comes out, it won't just hurt your brother. It'll destroy your father. Imagine learning that your youngest son, the child you've loved and raised for 13 years, isn't yours. Imagine that betrayal. I closed my eyes, trying to process the magnitude of what she was telling me. My ex-husband was my brother's father. My mother had been having an affair while married to my dad. My family had sacrificed me to keep their secret safe. Why are you telling me this now? Because you're on the news, Amber. Your story is everywhere, and people are asking questions about why your family wasn't there, about why you were alone on Thanksgiving. We're afraid someone might start digging. Of course, they weren't calling because they missed me or because they realized they'd made a mistake. They were calling because I'd become a liability. So what do you want from me? We want you to come back, to reconcile publicly, to show that we're all one big happy family again. The audacity was breathtaking. They wanted me to participate in covering up their lies, to pretend everything was fine, to help them maintain their perfect family image. And if I don't? Mom's voice got even quieter. Then Jake said he'll tell David the truth. He'll tell him that I cheated on Dad, that Dad isn't his real father, that his entire life has been a lie. Is that what you want? Emotional blackmail. They were all holding David hostage to get what they wanted. I looked around the community room at my chosen family, still celebrating, still genuine, still real. These people had embraced me without conditions, without secrets, without using my love for them as a weapon. I need time to think. Amber, the reporters are coming by tomorrow. We need to know. I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. Jessica appeared beside me instantly. Hey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. How could I even begin to explain? My family had been living a lie for 13 years. My ex-husband had been manipulating all of us. My little brother's entire identity was built on deception. It's complicated, I managed. Family drama? I laughed, but it came out bitter and broken. You could say that. Jessica didn't push for details, just sat beside me and handed me a glass of wine. That's the difference between chosen family and biological family. Chosen family respects your boundaries. Over the next hour, I watched my viral story continue to explode across social media. Orphan Thanksgiving was trending. People were sharing their own stories of family rejection, of creating new traditions, of finding love in unexpected places. I was being hailed as inspirational, brave, revolutionary. But I felt like a fraud, because now I knew the truth. My family hadn't ghosted me because they preferred Jake. They'd ghosted me because they were trapped in a web of lies and secrets, and including me would have made that web harder to maintain. My phone buzzed with text after text, interview requests from major networks, speaking opportunities, book deals. My story was inspiring millions of people around the world, and it was all built on something I didn't fully understand. At 11 p.m., after the last of my guests had gone home and I was cleaning up the community room, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Mom. It was David, my little brother who didn't know his life was a lie. My little brother who thought I'd just abandoned the family for no reason. Amber? I saw you on the news. Why didn't you come to Thanksgiving? Everyone's being really weird about it, and I missed you. His voice was so young, so innocent. 13 years old and completely unaware that his entire family had been lying to him his whole life. I missed you too, buddy. Mom said you were mad at everyone, but she won't tell me why. Did something happen? Everything happened. Your father isn't your father. Your sister was married to your actual father. Your mother has been keeping a secret that could destroy everything you think you know about yourself. It's just grown-up stuff, David. Don't worry about it. But you're still my sister, right? Even if you're mad at Mom and Dad? The question broke my heart. Yes, David. I'm always going to be your sister. Good. Because I don't understand why everyone's acting so strange, but I know you didn't do anything wrong. You're the best person in our family. After we hung up, I sat alone in the empty community room and cried. I cried for David, who deserved to know the truth about his parentage but might be destroyed by it. I cried for Dad, who had loved and raised a child who wasn't his, not knowing he was being betrayed. I cried for Mom, who had made a terrible mistake and had been paying for it for 13 years. I cried for Jake, who had somehow become the villain in a story where everyone was both victim and perpetrator. And I cried for myself, because I was caught in the middle of it all with no good options. By morning, my story had reached international news outlets. I woke up to dozens of missed calls from reporters, producers, and agents. My little orphan's Thanksgiving had become a global phenomenon. But I also woke up to a text from Jake. We need to talk. Today. Or everyone learns the truth about David. The bye. Threat was clear. Come back to the family fold, play along with their reunion narrative, or watch them all burn. I had 12 hours to decide whether to save my family or save myself, because I was about to discover that the truth I thought I knew was only the beginning. I stared at Jake's text for 20 minutes, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Outside my window, I could see news vans pulling up to my building. My story had exploded overnight. Orphan Thanksgiving was trending worldwide, and apparently, everyone wanted to interview the woman who had turned family rejection into a viral movement, but they had no idea what they were really asking about. I needed to see Jake face to face. I needed to understand exactly what kind of monster I'd been married to for 5 years without knowing it. I texted him back. Coffee shop on 5th Street. 1 hour. Come alone. His response was immediate. You're not in a position to make demands. Neither are you. 1 hour, or I hold a press conference this afternoon and tell the world everything. That got his attention. Fine. 1 hour. I threw on jeans and a hoodie, hoping to avoid the reporters camped outside my building. But as soon as I stepped into the lobby, cameras started flashing. Microphones were shoved in my face. Amber, Channel 7 News. Can you tell us about your family's reaction to your viral Thanksgiving? Good Morning America called. Will you be appearing on their show? What message do you have for families who exclude their loved ones during the holidays? I pushed through the crowd without speaking, my heart pounding. If only they knew the real story they were chasing. The coffee shop was blessedly quiet when I arrived. Jake was already there, sitting in a corner booth, looking older than I remembered. The past 6 months had aged him, carved lines around his eyes that hadn't been there when we were married. When he saw me, something flickered across his face. Regret? Fear? I couldn't tell anymore. I'd once thought I could read him like a book, but apparently I'd never known him at all. Amber. He stood up as I approached, like we were having some normal, cordial meeting. Sit down, Jake. We're not friends. I slid into the booth across from him, studying his face. Now that I knew the truth, I could see David in his features. So clearly it was almost painful. How had I missed it for so long? "You look good," he said quietly. "The whole viral thing? That was pretty incredible. Cut the small talk. You threatened my family. Explain." Jake ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd once found endearing but now made my skin crawl. "It's not that simple." "Make it simple." He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I was 19, Amber. 19 and stupid and working 2 jobs to help my mom pay rent. Your mom, she was this beautiful, sophisticated older woman going through a rough patch with your dad. She made me feel like I mattered. So you slept with her. It wasn't planned. It just happened. One night when I was doing some repair work at your house, your dad was out of town, you were at college, and she was lonely. We both were. I felt sick. And then you just forgot about it? Pretended it never happened? What was I supposed to do? She was married. I was a kid. She told me it was a mistake and could never happen again. I thought that was the end of it. Until David was born." Jake's jaw tightened. "I didn't know at first. Your mom never told me she was pregnant. I found out David existed the same way. Everyone else did, when your family announced his birth. But he was born 9 months after that night, Amber. The math wasn't hard to figure out. But you didn't say anything. I was 20 years old with no money, no education, no way to support a kid. Your parents were stable, happy, excited about their surprise baby. What good would it have done to blow up everyone's life?" I stared at him, trying to process this version of events. The Jake I was hearing about, young, scared, trying to do the right thing, didn't match the manipulative blackmailer my mother had described. So when did it change? When did you decide to use David as leverage? Pain flashed across Jake's face. When I realized I was losing everything, my marriage to you, my place in your family, my relationship with David. I watched that kid grow up for 13 years, Amber. I taught him to ride a bike. I helped him with his homework. I was at every birthday party, every school play, every baseball game, as my husband, not as his father. But I was his father. Jake's voice cracked. In every way that mattered except biology, your dad was his father, but biologically, that kid is mine, and I've never been able to acknowledge it, never been able to have that relationship with him. So you decided to destroy everyone else's relationships instead? I didn't want to destroy anything. When you filed for divorce, when your family started treating me like I was disposable, I panicked. I couldn't lose David completely. He's my son. The raw pain in Jake's voice caught me off guard. I'd come here expecting to confront a villain, but what I found was a broken man who'd been trapped by circumstances just like everyone else. The affair with Sarah was real, he admitted. And it was wrong. I was unhappy in our marriage, feeling disconnected from you, from everyone. Sarah understood me in a way that... I'm sorry, Amber. I'm so sorry for hurting you. I sat back in the booth, my mind reeling. So let me get this straight. You cheated on me with Sarah, but you're blackmailing my family to stay connected to David? I'm not blackmailing anyone. I just told your mom that if she completely cut me out of David's life, I'd have no choice but to tell him the truth about his parentage. He has a right to know, doesn't he? Did he? I thought about my little brother, 13 years old and innocent, worshipping the man he thought was his father while his real father sat at family dinners pretending to be his brother-in-law. And what about Dad? Does he deserve to know his wife cheated on him 14 years ago? Jake's face crumpled. Your dad is a good man, the best man I know. Watching him love David so completely, knowing what I know, it's torture, Amber. But telling him now would destroy him. It would destroy David. It would destroy your mom. What's the right answer here? There wasn't one. That was the horrible truth of it. There was no right answer that didn't leave someone devastated. So what do you want from me? I want you to understand that I never meant for any of this to happen. I want you to know that when your family excluded you from Thanksgiving, it wasn't because they don't love you. It's because they're all terrified. Terrified of what? Of losing David. Of destroying your dad. Of watching their family implode. And now, with your story going viral, they're terrified that someone's going to start asking questions about why your ex-husband is so close to your family while you're estranged from them. He was right. I'd been so focused on my own hurt that I hadn't considered how the media attention might complicate their situation. What happens now? I asked. Jake leaned forward, his eyes intense. That's up to you. You have all the power here, Amber. You could expose everything. Tell the world the real reason your family ghosted you. It would make for an even better story than what you've already got. But it would destroy an innocent kid who's never done anything wrong. It would devastate a man who's been nothing but a loving father. And it would turn your mother into a national scandal. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on me. Or, I whispered, or you could come back. We could figure out how to be a family again, all of us. Not the way we were before, but something new, something honest, even if we can't be completely truthful. You mean fake a reconciliation for the cameras? I mean, try to find a way forward that doesn't destroy everyone we care about. My phone buzzed with another interview request, and another. The outside world saw me as an inspiration, a woman who had created something beautiful from rejection. They wanted to celebrate my story, to learn from it, to be inspired by it. But the real story was so much more complicated than they knew. I need time to think. The reporters aren't going to wait forever, Amber. Every hour that passes, more questions get asked. Someone's going to start digging eventually. He was right, and we both knew it. My viral story had created a ticking time bomb, and I was the only one who could defuse it. What about Sarah? I asked suddenly. Jake looked confused. What about her? Does she know? About David? No. God, no. If Sarah knew... He trailed off, but I understood. Sarah was young, idealistic, probably imagining a future with Jake that didn't include the complicated reality of his secret son. So she's another person who'd be destroyed if the truth came out. Amber, please. I know I have no right to ask you for anything after what I did to our marriage, but David is innocent in all of this. Whatever you decide to do, please consider what it would mean for him. I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. I have to go. What are you going to do? I looked at my ex-husband. This man who had been my brother's biological father the entire time I'd known him, who had kept this secret while building a life with me, who was now begging me to protect the family that had rejected me. I honestly don't know. I walked out of the coffee shop and into a crowd of reporters who immediately swarmed me. Questions flew from all directions. Amber, will you be reconciling with your family? What's your response to people calling you a hero for rejected family members everywhere? Are you planning to write a book about your experience? I pushed through them without speaking, but one question stopped me cold. Amber, we've been trying to reach your family for comment. Your mother seems very upset. Is there more to this story than you've told us? I turned around slowly, my heart hammering. What did my mother say? The reporter, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and predatory eyes, smiled. She said there were things the public didn't understand about your situation. She seemed quite emotional, almost guilty. Ice ran through my veins. Mom was cracking under pressure. It was only a matter of time before someone pushed the right button and the whole story came spilling out. I had to make a decision. Today, I got back to my apartment and found my voicemail full of messages. Oprah's People, the Today Show, Dr. Phil. Everyone wanted my story, wanted to turn my pain into content, my family drama into entertainment. But there was one message that made me pause. Hi, this is Dr. Jennifer Walsh from the Family Psychology Institute. I've been following your story, and I wanted to reach out because I think there might be therapeutic approaches that could help you and your family navigate this situation privately, away from the media circus. Please call me back. A therapist. Someone who might actually be able to help rather than exploit. I was about to call her back when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw David standing in the hallway, looking smaller and younger than his 13 years. My heart stopped. Had someone told him? Was this the moment everything fell apart? I opened the door and he immediately threw his arms around me. Amber, I snuck out to see you. Everyone's acting so crazy at home and I missed you. And I saw on the news that people are being mean to you, and I wanted to make sure you were okay. I held my little brother who was also my ex-husband's son, and felt my heart breaking all over again. I'm okay, buddy, but you shouldn't have snuck out. Mom and Dad are probably worried sick. They're too busy whispering to each other and talking on the phone to notice I'm gone. Amber, what's really happening? And don't say it's grown-up stuff. Because I'm not stupid. Everyone's been weird since your divorce, but now it's like scary weird. I looked into David's eyes, Jake's eyes, and saw the intelligence there, the awareness that something was very wrong in his world. How much longer could we all keep lying to him? Come inside, I said. We need to talk. David sat on my tiny couch, looking around my studio apartment with curiosity. This is cozy, he said diplomatically. Despite everything, I smiled. It's tiny, you mean? I like it. It feels like you, not like our house, which feels like a magazine. Our house. The house where Jake and Sarah were probably sitting right now, playing happy family while Mom and Dad tried to figure out how to manage the crisis I'd created. David, what do you know about why I wasn't invited to Thanksgiving? He kicked his legs, a gesture that reminded me painfully of Jake. Mom said you were going through a hard time and needed space. But that doesn't make sense, because when people are going through hard times, don't they need their family more? Smart kid. Too smart. What else did she say? That grown-ups sometimes make complicated decisions that kids don't understand. But Jake said. He paused, looking uncomfortable. What did Jake say? He said that sometimes families have secrets, and the secrets make people act in ways that seem mean, but are really about protecting the people they love. My blood ran cold. Jake had been preparing David for something. But what? David, how do you feel about Jake? I mean, now that we're divorced? David shrugged. I like him. He's always been nice to me. But it's weird that he still comes to everything when you don't. It makes me sad that you can't both be there. Why do you think Jake still comes to family events? I don't know. Mom says he's still part of the family because he was married to you for so long. But that doesn't really make sense either, does it? No, it didn't make sense. Unless you knew the truth. I was about to respond when my phone rang. Mom's number. David? David, where are you? You can't just disappear like that. I could hear the panic in her voice, the fear that her carefully constructed world was completely falling apart. He's here, Mom. He's safe. Oh, thank God. Amber, please, you can't. He can't be there right now. Not with everything that's happening. What exactly is happening, Mom? The reporters, they're asking more questions. About Jake. About why he's still close to us. About the timeline of everything. Someone's going to figure it out, Amber. Someone's going to destroy our family. I looked at David, who was watching me with growing concern. My little brother, who deserved the truth but might be crushed by it. My little brother, who was the innocent victim in all of this adult mess. I'm bringing him home, I said finally. Thank you. And Amber, we need to make a decision, all of us. Today. She was right. The viral story that had started as my personal triumph was becoming a weapon that could destroy everyone I loved. After I hung up, David looked at me seriously. "Amber, are you in trouble?" "I don't know, buddy. Maybe we all are. But we'll figure it out, right? Families always figure things out. Families. As if we had any idea what that word even meant anymore. "Come on," I said, grabbing my keys. "Let's get you home." As we walked to my car, David slipped his hand into mine. "Amber, no matter what happens, you're still the best sister in the world, okay?" I squeezed his hand, fighting back tears, because I had a horrible feeling that after today, nothing would ever be the same between us again. The decision I was about to make would either save my family or destroy it forever. And I still had no idea which choice was right. The drive to my parents' house felt like driving to an execution. David chattered nervously beside me, sensing the tension but not understanding its source. Every few blocks, I noticed cars that might have been following us. Reporters, probably, hoping for more drama to feed the story that had consumed my life. "There's a lot of cars behind us," David observed, looking in the side mirror. "Yeah, there are. Are they following us because you're famous now?" Famous. Was that what I was? Famous for being rejected by my family, not knowing that rejection was built on a lie that could destroy a child's entire sense of identity. Something like that. When we pulled into my parents' driveway, I saw Jake's truck parked next to Dad's car. Sarah's little Honda was there too. The whole cast of characters, assembled for what felt like the final act of a tragedy nobody had wanted to write. "Why is Jake here?" David asked. "And Sarah?" Before I could answer, the front door burst open and Mom came running out, her face streaked with tears. She pulled David into a fierce hug, holding him like she might lose him forever. "Don't ever scare me like that again," she whispered into his hair. "I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted to see Amber." Over David's head, Mom's eyes met mine. The desperation I saw there was overwhelming, a mother terrified that her world was about to collapse around her son. "Come inside," she said. "All of us. We need to talk." The living room felt smaller with everyone in it. Dad sat in his usual chair, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Jake and Sarah were on the couch, Sarah looking confused and uncomfortable, Jake looking like a man facing his execution. Mom hovered near David, as if she could physically shield him from whatever was coming. "David," Dad said, his voice strained. "Why don't you go up to your room for a while? We need to have an adult conversation." "No." The word came out of my mouth before I'd consciously decided to say it. Everyone stared at me. No more secrets. No more lies. No more protecting David from the truth while destroying everyone else in the process. "Amber," Mom pleaded, "please, think about what you're saying." I have been thinking about it for hours, and I've realized that every single problem we're facing right now stems from the same source: lies. Lies and secrets and the assumption that David can't handle the truth. "He's 13 years old," Dad's voice cracked. "He's 13 years old and he's not stupid. He knows something's wrong. He's been asking questions. How much longer do you think you can keep lying to him before he figures it out himself, Jake?" Cleared his throat. "Amber's right. David's already asking me about family secrets." Sarah looked between Jake and me, clearly lost. "What's going on? What secrets?" I looked around the room at these people I'd loved, people I'd been part of for my entire life, people who had shaped me and hurt me and were now looking at me like I held their fate in my hands. Maybe I did. "David," I said, turning to my little brother, "sit down. There's something we all need to tell you." "Amber." "No," Mom whispered. "David," I said, ignoring her, "what do you know about how babies are made?" He rolled his eyes. "I'm not 5, Amber. I know about sex and genetics and stuff." "Good, because the adults in this room have been keeping a secret from you your whole life, and it's time you knew the truth." The room was dead silent. Even the grandfather clock seemed to have stopped ticking. "What kind of secret?" David asked, and I could hear the fear creeping into his voice. I looked at Mom, at Dad, at Jake. They were all frozen, waiting to see if I would really do this, if I would be the one to detonate the bomb that would change David's life forever. "The secret is about your father," I said gently. David looked at Dad, confused. "What about him?" "Dad will always be your father in every way that matters," I said quickly. "He raised you. He loves you. He's been there for every important moment of your life. But biologically, you have a different father." The confusion on David's face was heartbreaking. "What do you mean?" "I mean that before you were born, Mom and Dad were going through a difficult time in their marriage, and during that time, Mom made a mistake. She slept with someone else, and that someone else is your biological father." David's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, dawning understanding, and then something that looked like betrayal. "You mean I'm adopted?" "No, sweetheart," Mom said, her voice breaking. "You're not adopted. You're our son. You'll always be our son. But your biological father, he's someone you know." David looked around the room, his 13-year-old mind working through the possibilities. His eyes landed on Jake, and I watched the realization hit him like a physical blow. "Jake," he whispered. Jake's face crumpled. "Yeah, buddy, it's me." The silence that followed was devastating. David stared at Jake, then at Dad, then at Mom, then back at Jake. "You're my real dad?" "No," Dad said firmly, standing up. "I'm your real dad. I've been your real dad since the day you were born. Jake is your biological father, but that doesn't make him your real dad." David's eyes filled with tears. "But we're not actually—" "You are my son," Dad said, crossing to David and kneeling in front of him. "In every way that matters, you are my son. I was there when you were born. I taught you to walk. I've been to every baseball game, every parent-teacher conference, every moment of your life that mattered. Biology doesn't change that." "But Mom cheated on you," David said, his voice small and broken. Mom flinched like she'd been slapped. "Yes, I did. And it was the biggest mistake of my life. Not because of you could never be a mistake, but because I hurt your father. And I created this situation that we've all been struggling with ever since." Sarah, who had been sitting in stunned silence, finally spoke up. "Jake, is this why you've been so involved with this family even after the divorce?" Jake nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "He's my son, Sarah. I know it's complicated, and I know I should have told you, but I couldn't just walk away from him." "And you've all been lying to me this whole time?" David's voice was getting stronger, anger replacing the hurt. "We were trying to protect you," Mom said. "From what? From the truth? From knowing who I really am? From having your life turned upside down," Dad said. "From feeling like everything you thought you knew about yourself was a lie." "But it was a lie," David shouted. "My whole life has been a lie. You let me think Dad was my biological father. You let Jake pretend to be my brother-in-law when he's actually my father. You've been lying to me every single day of my life." The pain in his voice was unbearable. This was exactly what we'd all been trying to avoid, and now it was happening anyway. "David," Jake said quietly, "I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But I want you to know that watching you grow up, being part of your life, even if I couldn't acknowledge our real relationship, it's been the greatest privilege of my life." "Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you fight for me?" Jake looked at Dad, at Mom, at me. "Because I thought it was the right thing to do. Because your parents are good people who love you, and I thought disrupting that would hurt you more than help you." "But it wasn't your decision to make," David yelled. It was my life, my identity. And you all decided I wasn't strong enough or smart enough to handle the truth. He was right. We had decided that. We had made choices about his life without including him, assuming we knew what was best for him. You're absolutely right, I said. We made those choices for you, and we were wrong. You deserve to know the truth. Why are you telling me now? David asked, looking directly at me. I took a deep breath. Because my Thanksgiving story went viral, and reporters are starting to ask questions about our family. They're wondering why Jake is still so close to us when I'm not. Someone was going to figure it out eventually, and I decided you deserved to hear it from us instead of reading about it online or hearing it from strangers. David processed this for a moment. So you didn't tell me because it was the right thing to do. You told me because you got caught. The accusation stung because it was partially true. That's part of it, yes, but also because I realized that keeping this secret was hurting everyone. It's why Mom and Dad excluded me from Thanksgiving. It's why Jake has been able to manipulate our family. It's why none of us have been able to have honest relationships with each other. Jake's been manipulating us? David looked confused. Jake had the grace to look ashamed. I told your parents that if they cut me out of your life completely, I would tell you the truth. I was afraid of losing you. So you held me hostage. Yes. I guess I did. David stood up, pacing the room like a caged animal. So let me get this straight. Mom cheated on Dad with Jake when Jake was 19. I was born 9 months later. Dad raised me thinking I was his biological son. Jake knew I was his son but didn't say anything. Everyone decided to keep lying to me to protect me. When Amber got divorced, Jake threatened to tell me the truth if he got cut out of the family. So instead of telling me the truth then, you all decided to cut Amber out instead. And now you're only telling me because Amber's story went viral, and you're afraid reporters will figure it out. When he put it like that, it sounded even worse than it had in my head. That's basically accurate, Mom said quietly. And Sarah? David looked at Jake's girlfriend. Did you know any of this? Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I had no idea. I thought Jake was just really close to your family because he'd been married to Amber for so long. Well, now you know the truth. Jake's been lying to you too. Sarah looked at Jake with a mixture of hurt and betrayal. How could you not tell me you had a son? Because it's complicated, Jake said helplessly. Because he's not really my son in any way that matters. Because I didn't know how to explain it without destroying everyone's life. But you were willing to destroy Amber's life to protect your secret, Sarah said quietly. I never wanted to destroy anyone's life. But you did, David exploded. You destroyed Amber's relationship with us. You've been lying to Sarah. You've been manipulating Mom and Dad. And for what? So you could keep pretending to be my brother-in-law, instead of just being my father? The room fell silent again. David was breathing heavily, his face flushed with anger and hurt. What happens now? He asked finally. That was the question, wasn't it? What happened now that all the secrets were out? Now that the lies had been exposed? Now that everyone's carefully constructed world had been demolished? Now we figure out how to move forward, I said. All of us, together. Do we? David asked. Do we all move forward together? Because it seems like you've all been perfectly happy to exclude each other and lie to each other and hurt each other. Why would I want to be part of that? It was a fair question. Looking around the room at these damaged, complicated people I called family, I wondered the same thing. Because we love each other, Mom said quietly. Despite all the mistakes we've made, despite all the hurt we've caused, we love each other. Love isn't enough, David said, and the wisdom in his voice was startling. Love without honesty isn't real love. It's just control. He was right. Everything we'd done in the name of love had actually been about control. Controlling the Narrative. Controlling the outcome. Controlling David's reality to match what we thought was best for him. So what do you want? I asked him. Now that you know the truth, what do you want to happen? David looked around the room, studying each of us. I want to get to know my biological father, not as my sister's ex-husband, but as my actual father. I want Dad to know that he's still my dad, that nothing changes how I feel about him. I want Mom to stop feeling guilty about a mistake she made 14 years ago. I want Sarah to decide if she can handle dating a man with a secret son. And I want Amber to come back to the family, because none of this was her fault and she shouldn't have been punished for everyone else's lies. And the media? Dad asked. The reporters who are asking questions? David shrugged. Tell them the truth, or some version of it. Tell them that families are complicated, that sometimes people make mistakes, that sometimes it takes a crisis to bring everyone back together. You want us to go public with this? Mom asked, horrified. I want us to stop being afraid of the truth, David said. Maybe we don't need to share every detail with the whole world, but we need to stop lying to each other and stop pretending that secrets are the same thing as protection. I looked at this 13-year-old boy who had just had his entire world turned upside down, and I felt a surge of pride and love so strong it took my breath away. He was handling this with more grace and wisdom than any of the adults in the room. There's something else, I said. My story went viral because it resonated with people who felt rejected by their families. If we reconcile now, if we come back together, that could be powerful too. It could show people that families can heal, that honesty can lead to reconciliation, that love can survive even the most complicated truths. You want to turn our family drama into a lesson for the world? Dad asked. I want to turn our family healing into hope for other families, I corrected. We spent the next 3 hours talking. Really talking. For the first time in years. We cried, we yelled, we apologized, we made plans. Jake and Sarah would go to counseling to figure out if their relationship could survive this revelation. Jake would start building a real father-son relationship with David, with Dad's blessing and support. Mom and Dad would go to therapy to work through the betrayal and the lies. I would come back to the family, not as the dutiful daughter who pretended everything was fine, but as someone who demanded honesty and accountability. And together, we would face the media circus that my viral story had created. The next morning, I held a press conference in my parents' backyard. The whole family was there. Mom, Dad, David, Jake, even Sarah. We stood together as reporters peppered us with questions about our reconciliation. Yesterday, you were estranged from your family, one reporter said. Today, you're back together. What changed? I looked at my family, my complicated, damaged, loving family, and smiled. We decided to stop lying to each other, I said simply. We realized that protecting people from the truth isn't actually protection. It's just another form of control. And we learned that families can survive almost anything if they're willing to be honest with each other. Are you saying your family was lying to you about why you were excluded from Thanksgiving? I'm saying that families are complicated, that sometimes people make mistakes, big mistakes, and then spend years trying to manage the consequences instead of just dealing with the truth. But I'm also saying that it's never too late to choose honesty over convenience, truth over comfort. What message do you have for other families dealing with similar situations? I thought about all the messages I'd received from people who felt rejected, excluded, misunderstood by their families. I thought about the thousands of people who had created their own orphan Thanksgivings because they didn't feel welcome at their family tables. I think I'd say that sometimes the people who love you the most are the ones who are most afraid of losing you. And sometimes that fear makes them do things that end up pushing you away anyway. But if you can find the courage to be honest, really honest, even when it's scary and messy and complicated, you might discover that love is stronger than you think. Will you be joining your family for Christmas? I looked at David, who nodded encouragingly. At Mom and Dad, who were holding hands for the first time in months. At Jake, who was learning how to be a father instead of a secret. At Sarah, who was learning that love sometimes comes with complications you never expected. Yes, I said. We'll all be together for Christmas. All of us. Honestly this time. After the reporters left, we sat in the backyard as the sun set, exhausted but somehow lighter than we'd been in years. I'm proud of you, I told David, for how you handled all of this. He shrugged. I'm still angry and hurt and confused about a lot of things, but I'm glad I know the truth now, even if it's complicated. Especially because it's complicated, I said. Simple truths are easy. It's the complicated ones that matter. That evening, as I was getting ready to go back to my apartment, David pulled me aside. Amber, thank you for telling me the truth, even when it was hard. Thank you for forgiving us, even when we didn't deserve it. I haven't forgiven everyone yet, he said honestly, but I want to try. 3 months later, my follow-up video went viral too. My family reconciliation. What happened after Thanksgiving went viral, became an even bigger story than the original. Not because of the drama, but because of the healing. I talked about the importance of chosen family, the friends and community who become your support system when your biological family fails you. But I also talked about the possibility of biological family becoming chosen family too, when they're willing to do the work of honest relationship. The comment section was full of people sharing their own stories of family reconciliation, of difficult truths that led to deeper connections, of the messy, complicated, beautiful work of loving imperfect people. And every Sunday, we have family dinner. All of us. Jake and Sarah, who decided that love plus honesty was stronger than love plus secrets. Mom and Dad, who are learning to build a marriage based on truth instead of carefully managed information. David, who now has 2 fathers and seems to be thriving with the complexity. And me, who learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable lies, even when the truth is painful. We're not the same family we were before. We're messier, more complicated, more honest. We argue more, but we also laugh more. We don't pretend everything is perfect, but we're learning that imperfect truth is more valuable than perfect lies. And on Thanksgiving, we have 2 celebrations. One for our biological family, with all its complications and history and messy love, and one for our chosen family, the friends and community members who remind us that love comes in many forms, and family is something you build, not just something you're born into. My viral Thanksgiving story started with rejection and exclusion, but it ended with a truth I never expected. Sometimes the best families are the ones that have to be rebuilt from the ground up, with honesty as the foundation and love as the goal. Sometimes being ghosted by your family is the beginning of finding them again, finding them honestly, completely, and more deeply than you ever thought possible. And sometimes the most viral story isn't the one about being rejected. It's the one about what happens when rejection becomes reconciliation, when secrets become truth, and when a family decides that love is worth the risk of complete honesty. That's a story worth sharing. That's a story that changes everything.